It's time for Ask the Mayor, and this morning in with us in place of Mayor Stan Worth, welcome in Jason Moore, Street Superintendent, Landfill Superintendent, Director of Mars Midwest Area's Refuse Solutions. Good morning, Jason.
Good morning.
Still have all those jobs to do, huh?
It's an interesting. It does.
I'll bet for one thing, as a head of a department that does snow removal, you're glad you're not in North Dakota this week. Well, I tell you what are they facing up there?
Yeah, it's a lot of trouble when you have stuff like that. On one side you look at it and you say, well, at least it's going to shut down most of the people who are going to work. It's you're not going to have the extra traffic out there. But in the same breath, if you have the wind involved with it, the drifting and it, hopefully they'll be able to. The nice thing about a spring storm is that usually you get some warm weather on the tail end of it, and it should disappear quickly.
How did you come through this year? I imagine you got quite a bit of material that left over from I don't know. I can't remember the last time we really had. I think we had one or two snows in there where there was maybe 3, maybe 4 inches, but beyond that, there was like next to nothing.
Yeah, we had an interesting year. We had used probably about 100, give or take about 100 tons of salt through the 1st of March. And then in March, we had 3 small winter events that came through, gave us some slushy, really wet slop on the road. One of those storms, we used about 60 tons, and the other 2, we used about 20 tons. So we are approximately 225 tons, give or take, that we've used for the entire winter. On a normal winter, we may go through about 900 tons. So we're coming out of this year in really good shape.
Okay, as far as street conditions, freeze thaw, things like that, have you seen much damage or pretty easy winter to deal with?
Really, it's been a good year. Yeah. We haven't had the freeze thaw, the moisture getting down into the cracks and then giving us the popping. We've used a little bit of patching material this year, but nothing like what we've had in the past. So again, there's been definite savings.
Okay. Well, one of the things we want to talk about today, it's coming up here pretty soon in just a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, the annual Clean City, Beatrice Clean City campaign, where you do the large item pickup from curbside. You had it during the fall last year, tried a different thing, going back to spring this year. And there's a couple of changes, and I guess one would be, let's start out first of all with the registration deadline. Kind of moving that up, hoping people will get that taken care of by, I think, May 6th, if I remember right. If they do that, how much easier would that make it for, conducting the campaign this year?
Well, it makes it easier on administration because we end up having Jean comes out. She's out at the service center for us, and as well as our IT. And normally they'll take care of the paperwork for us that Monday morning before we go out and start Clean City. You might see a flurry. You could see 50 or 60 registrations show up on the Saturday, Sunday before the start date for Clean City. And so for us to try and get those people crammed in and try and get in the right place with the right operator that's in that right area for those pickups, there's a lot of work that has to happen that Monday morning. And Jean will come in and our IT will come in earlier to try and make sure that everything was up and running for us. And sometimes there were addresses that slipped through because it may have came through after the deadline, right after the deadline. And then it's okay, do we take them? Do we not? By having the deadline be the 6th, it really helped that Friday night. It really will help us because by the time we go home Friday, we should have everything taken care of and ready for us on Monday morning.
And you can register right now if you want to. I mean, the site is open on the city's website, so you can do it electronically. You could come in or you could call, too, as I understand.
You can. Yeah, everything's up and ready to go right now.
Okay. One of the other changes, and this has been kind of an ongoing discussion over the years, is how do you handle old mattresses that are discarded. You've tried a few different things. You've had it at the ball fields, West Court. You've gone back to First and Ella, and that has had varying degrees of success because you have people that try to drag in mattresses from out of city, out of county. Trying a new thing this year, they bring them directly to the landfill compost site.
Correct. The landfill is located at 3426 West Locust Road. The compost site is directly west of the landfill entrance. And so what we're asking people is to bring your mattresses. You're already going to have them loaded up in the vehicle. You would have dropped off at the drop-off site. Now we're asking you to bring it out to the compost site. We will have staff on hand that is there job normally there to help with people that may come in and drop off yard waste or brush. Now we're going to ask those attendants to check a driver's license to make sure certain that you're a Beatrice resident. Make sure that you are who you say you are. Bring in the mattresses. You'll be able to back up to a roll-off just like you do now. Throw it into the roll-off for us. Once that roll-off's full, we'll either have a Mars employee or a BASWA employee that will come over, grab the roll-off, and take it into the landfill.
No charge for it?
No charge.
Yeah. How do you think it'll go, trying this new thing this year?
I think it's going to go well.
Yeah.
There's always a chance that there'll be somebody that's unhappy with it. But honestly, you're providing a free service to get rid of. You're providing a free service to get rid of mattresses for a good cause. I think it'll go well.
You ever wonder, after you do this whole campaign for so many years in a row, where all these large items come from? I mean, people just keep acquiring stuff, and it doesn't seem like it really tails off. You have several truckloads, a lot of hours put in with the trucks and the loaders, and it doesn't ever seem to get a lot less. It grows, if anything.
It does.
Yeah.
There are years we had probably in 16, 17 in there, we had some pretty big years. Mm-hmm. And that's where the program had kind of turned into something that it wasn't meant to be. And it kind of turned into you put it out and we'll pick it up. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't what Clean City was meant to be. When it was started in 1989, it was meant to be a large item pickup. Mm-hmm. And so in 16, we reevaluated what we were doing and what we were picking up. And I looked at my trucks going down the road, and they were losing small wrappers and small bags and boxes of small items. And we realized that this wasn't what it was meant for. Mm-hmm. And so we really turned back and we looked at it and said, we're going to make this what it was meant to be, and that's a large item pickup. And so now, we've got a few guidelines still that we don't pick up lumber, we don't pick up tires, household hazardous waste, no paint, those items. And they're all listed on the website, what we can and cannot accept. And but I really think for what it is, it's a good program.
Mm-hmm. Rules are pretty much the same then, and they're right there on the website. So if you want to review what you can throw out and you can't, I know lots of times it's hard to get people to abide by the rules, but they're there. You got plenty of time to read them between now and the date of the collection. You went to 3-day rather than a week-long collection some years back. I think it was this your third or fourth year doing that?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. Has that worked pretty well?
It's worked out really nice.
Yeah.
In the years past, we would time it so that the area that we were in generally had garbage pickup the next day. Mm-hmm. And so that way anything that we left, garbage company would have then picked up. With the city having the Mars, it's going to work out well again this year, because generally what we may have an item out there that was put out and was something we can't pick up. We would then leave it, and then there's the possibility that they could call in and we could have a truck pick it up.
Mm-hmm. How many other towns do one this extensive? I know there's probably some other communities that do maybe, let's say, like a one-day pickup or occasionally offer people to get rid of large items, but yours seems to be maybe one of the longest running and most extensive.
It is. You see small villages around. I know Plymouth is coming up. I know Blue Springs, Wymore, I know they'll have them. Mm-hmm. I know there are other small villages that will have them as well. Customers of Mars, we put that in their contract that when they have their Clean City or their village cleanup, that we will supply them with roll-offs. Mm-hmm. And so we put a couple roll-offs in, and what they do is they allow their customers to come up. Again, there are restricted items to what they can't put in there, but they bring them up, they put fill the roll-offs up, and then we go and we retrieve them and bring them back into the landfill.
Speaking with Jason Moore today, Street Superintendent, Director of Mars. Going to talk a little bit more about Mars here in just a moment here on Ask the Mayor. That's coming up next. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Jason Moore, Street and Landfill Superintendent and Director of Midwest Area Refuse Solutions. It's almost hard to believe Mars has passed its 1-year birthday here. He started this, last April 1st, a year ago, and here we are. Already had a chance to see how it's gone. I know from time to time there's always those out there that say, what is the city doing, getting into an area that a private entity would normally handle, but you went that route. You took bids, you reviewed the entire thing, and as it turns out, you can provide the service for less money. then they can.
Exactly. When we went through the bidding process, the city of Beatrice did provide the lowest bid, as well, through the pool of the other vendors or that had submitted bids in. We were the lowest bid, and we did offer the best model for it. And it came back, and there are other municipalities out there that do work in the private sector. There are multiple ones around that we've shown that do this type of work. And so for the municipalities to intermingle into private sector is not unheard of. It's one thing that we do and provide a service for the citizens of Beatrice as well as surrounding county at a very, very reasonable rate. In fact, cheaper than a lot of the other haulers around. And we're seeing that because our numbers of rural customers are increasing. Every day we're taking a new customer a tote. Every month, there were months where we were running anywhere from 10. The highest I can remember was just a little over 20 new customers in a month. And so we've got a great product. We're providing a great service at a very reasonable rate. The fact that the city owns its own landfill is an extreme benefit for us as well. And so Mars is doing extremely well. We're seeing nice returns, and that's what you want. But the first year was an adventure. It was definitely fun along the way, and but right now it's really, really it's very interesting to look at something and see something that you started from scratch and see it now really moving and firing on all cylinders. And we know our routes, we know our stops, the drivers know where they're going, we know our equipment, and we're providing a great service and being able to get it done in a timely manner.
People might ask, does it pay for itself? Does it make money? What kind of margin do you see there a year later? Because usually when you start up something this big, you're not expecting it to really, go great guns for that first year because you have to work out the kinks. You're establishing a customer base beyond what you already have in Beatrice. But what can you say about the revenue that comes in right now?
The revenue that comes in, if there wasn't money to be made, it wouldn't have been wise for the city to have went down this path. And when we sat down and we brought in our consultant that we had from Michigan, he came down and worked with us on our model for the plan. All he could say was, "Oh yes, you're going to do well," and we're seeing that now. Here we are again. Over the last year, we've picked up near 200 customers on the rural route. Every day, we continue to pick up new customers across the north half of the county. And so, as people see our name out there, they see our totes along the road. We get calls asking whether or not we can provide dumpster service or roll-offs. Today, we're running roll-offs to Fairbury and dropping them off. We have roll-offs in Tecumseh currently that we're making runs over. My roll-off driver, there are days that I have 2 guys and they do nothing but run roll-offs. The business is there for us, and the service that we provide, again, when they hear about what we have to offer at the prices that we are offering, it's better than the competitors. And so, but the plan is working. The year 1 we knew would be a rough year for us. Year 2, we're just now starting to see, hey, this is going to be a good thing. And year 3 is looking very well for us.
What's the comparative monthly cost on the rural customers compared to who they were dealing with? How much of a savings are they seeing at this point, would you say?
Well, rural customers, I believe, are at $23 a month. And I'm hearing that there are other customers out there that are other providers out there that were over 30. So we are seeing that we're providing a great service at a great rate.
Okay. Do you figure that at some point, and I don't know when that point might be, if ever, do you figure at some point you'll reach the area where you've expanded enough into rural areas that you really can't handle anymore, or that you get about so far out that you'll have to just say, hey, that's it, that's all we can take, or do you have room to grow? Yeah.
We have room to grow. We've got contractors that we work with being the superintendent of BASWA, which is the landfill, there are contractors that we worked with right now who are bringing municipal solid waste into BASWA that we don't want to step on their toes. Mm-hmm. So we understand that Shelby Temps is picking up south of us. We understand he comes out of Marysville and he comes up to the south edge of Beatrice. We're not actively going to go out and trying to solicit south of Beatrice because we know that material is already currently coming to the landfill. Mm-hmm. We know that Seneca Transfer is coming out of the DuBois area. They already bring their garbage to the BASWA landfill now, and they pick up the Tecumseh, they pick up Crab Orchard, and they're west of Philly, west of the Virginia area. So we know we don't want to go over there. There's no reason. We have a great relationship with Greg. There's no reason for us to go over and bother them. Mm-hmm. And we know the Schmitz is west of us, and we know that they provide a service in the Fairbury South and West area. We know that they come to us. There's no reason for us to really actively try and take from them when the material's already coming to us. Mm-hmm. Now, what that leaves everything from Highway 136 north, and that be east and west from Philly north, as well as Ellis north, all the way to south of Wilbur, west of DeWitt, the Plymouth, Dakin, western areas that we already currently have contracts with. We're picking up new customers around those areas. Mm-hmm. We currently are picking up new customers in the Firth area, and so we're seeing customers calling with questions in those areas, and it's nice to be able to expand in those areas.
Before we take another break here and talk about some other items, I can remember a year ago when we were out by the street department or the Board of Public Works Service Center. I was watching your truck drivers practice that day, getting ready to go out, and there's always a little bit of nervousness, I guess, among the drivers that, hey, am I going to be able to? How difficult is this going to be? A year later, how good are they getting at this, picking up these containers?
They can do about 70 stops in an hour.
Wow.
And that's with the automated side loader. Mm-hmm. And that's with parked cars along the roadway. If they're in an area where there's no parking, mm-hmm. and it's ideal with no wind, and when I say no wind, I understand that's a funny thing to say with the wind that we've had. But when I say no wind or very little wind, so that when they dump, they don't have something that comes blowing out to where mm-hmm. the guys have to stop the truck, get out and pick it up. Mm-hmm. In an ideal condition, the guys can run right down the road there, and they'll run north of 70 stops in an hour. Mm-hmm. And so they've gotten extremely good at what they do. And they've also learned to understand the trucks to where when they have an electrical glitch, it would just amaze you how many sensors go into an automated arm that when you push a button, it knows it's going to go, it's going to grab, it's going to squeeze it at the right tension, it's going to pick it up, dump it, set it back down, and bring the arm back to the truck again. Every step requires a different sensor. And if one sensor gets a little dirty, a little greasy, something that the eye can't necessarily recognize what it's doing, the arm does funny things.
They can diagnose things a little bit better than used to then.
It does. It works out really well now.
Okay. 10 minutes before 9 o'clock on Ask the Mayor with Jason Moore. We'll have more to wrap up our program in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today as we finish things up with Jason Moore, Street and Landfill Superintendent and Director of Midwest Area Refuse Solutions. Before we get to some of the street construction work and things that'll go on this year, we just had the fire people on. Of course, they don't like wind this time of year with dry conditions. I would imagine landfill superintendents don't really like wind either because everywhere it happens, you get the problem of trash kind of blowing around, and it's just something you have to deal with.
It is, and we have fences that we put up around the area. When the guys are working in the cell, which is the active, there are multiple cells in the landfill, and the cell that we're in right now is cell 5. They'll be working in that area, and we bring in the wind fences, and wind fences are a tall vertical fence with an angled section on the top to try and keep the litter from blowing out. Mm-hmm. They'll bring the fences in as tight as they can and work in a very small area. When the wind blows like this, generally we try to stop having garbage come into us at, say, 10:30, 11 o'clock if we can, so that we don't have, in the high wind time, We don't have any more garbage than we have to that's getting dumped into the cell. With Mars, we dumped the guys went around this morning. They are to go out and dump by 8:30, 9 o'clock, their first round. Then they'll go out and they'll keep the garbage on the trucks overnight so that we know that we're not dumping at, say, 12:30, 1 o'clock on our second round.
When you really get the wind whistling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guys know at the landfill, it's very frustrating. And we know that the litter's blowing around. We know the litter will blow up against a fence. It will kind of blot out the fence, and that's when the fences get blown over. The wind can't pass through anymore, and it hits all the litter stuck to it, and it blows them over. The guys have to constantly stand them back up to try and fight the litter. They'll even have a truck that's dumping garbage, and they'll be right there dumping dirt onto the garbage from beside to try and stop the litter as much as possible. With that being said, we bring in the landfill personnel. Some of them will come in the evenings and pick up litter, weekends and pick up litter. I've got Mars personnel that will go out there and they'll help pick up litter. So it's kind of a joint effort, and everybody kind of chips in, and we try to get it done. And it's interesting because one day the wind will blow 45 miles out of the west. The next day it wants to blow 45 mile an hour out of the south, and then it blows the next day back out of the north. And so it makes for we spread the joy. Let's put it that way.
You just hope for a calm day now and then to kind of give yourself a break from chasing down stuff blowing around.
It is nice when the wind doesn't blow.
Well, you're at the verge of a construction season here coming out of winter. What can we see this year, do you think, in terms of street projects? I know you normally do some maintenance work like armor coating, things like that, but how active of a year will it be, do you think?
It ought to be an interesting year. Let's put it that way. We've got a lot of armor coats that are going to take place in the northeast corner of town. Again, an armor coat is an emulsion oil that's spread down, gravel or a chip material that's put over the top and then rolled into the emulsion oil. As it cools, it creates a hardened surface. Gives you anywhere from 5 to 10 years, depending on traffic count on those roadways. It's a very inexpensive way to seal up the roadway. We've also got a mill and overlay program that we will have this year on North 11th, which is from Lincoln Street north to Monroe. We're going to come in, we're going to mill that stretch down along what used to be the old hospital area there, and then replace the asphalt on that stretch. The funny thing about that one is the contractors have told us that they're so far behind and there's so many other projects out there right now that they can't guarantee that they're going to get to us this year. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and what they can do, though, is they can replace the concrete ADA ramps. Whenever we have a mill and overlay, whenever we remove the surface of the roadway, we have to replace an ADA ramp if it does not meet regulation. Well, regulations change a lot, and so the most recently they changed a couple years ago. They updated the regulations on how they needed to be. So every time we have a mill and overlay, we replace the ADA ramps. And so the contractor will have a group that will come in, and their job is nothing but concrete. And so they'll come in, they'll do the concrete valleys, the curb, any sort of ADA ramps. They're telling us they can get that done this year, but the mill and overlay, unless there's something that moves around and the stars line up right, we most likely won't see the mill and overlay until the spring of 2023. But we've got a lot of armor coats set up. We've got the good mill and overlay. We've got a concrete project that's going to be on 4th Street from Grant to Lincoln, and then from 4th Street to 5th Street, which will be a concrete replacement. We're going to pull the asphalt out, replace with concrete. And that's just because that asphalt stretch is really getting pounded. It's just not holding up to all the traffic that Lincoln Street carries. And so we'll have that stretch, and that will be replaced here probably early summer.
Even though the intersection ramps, if I remember right, are ADA compliant on that project, do you still have to redo them again once you come in with the concrete just to repair them, or is it it's not quite as extensive as if they weren't there in the beginning, is it?
It's not. And so but if they don't meet code, they have to be replaced.
I see.
And so I believe the ones on Grant Street, because they were replaced a couple of years ago, we'll have to go and look at those. When that stretch of Grant from 4th to 5th was straightened out, I believe, I want to say maybe the 15-16 area, we straightened that stretch out a little bit. Those were changed. They may not need to be changed, but the ones at 4th and 4th and Lincoln will have to be taken a look at, and then the ones at 5th and Lincoln will have to take a look at also. I'm not saying that they'll have to be replaced, but we'll have to make certain that they meet code.
You get so much turning traffic there, though, people run over those things too and maybe do a little bit of damage, so you have to kind of take that into consideration, I suppose.
They do, and there's what's called a truncated dome. That's the plastic. It's a 2x4 plastic area that's set into the cement there. It's for people to stand on. It kind of lets you know where to stop. It's also there for wheelchairs, but they'll come across that, and sometimes water will get underneath those, and it freezes and pops them. And I know there's one on that corner that's loose a little bit there, so we will probably go in and replace that for certain.
We only have a minute left, and we haven't even gotten to the Lincoln Street whole thing. That's probably a separate show altogether, but that is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what the recommendations or suggestions are there, because that is going to be a major project. Probably I don't know, a couple years, 3 years, or would that be something that could be done at once? I don't know.
It could be. There'll be a lot of decision making that has to happen between now and then for us to decide whether or not we spread that out or we try to tackle it in 1 year. And so we'll sit back and we'll see what our consultants come back and what the costs estimates are for the different options.
Any idea how many times Lincoln has been resurfaced with asphalt over the years? I know that's a big long stretch there, so it probably wasn't all at once, but I would imagine it's a few times. Yeah.
I think it's probably been done at least twice since 2008 when I first started really paying attention. So I would imagine twice since then. So going to concrete is definitely going to save in the long run. Yeah. And it will hold up better to the truck traffic.
All right. Jason, thanks for being in with us. Appreciate it.
You bet.